Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 10 of HPConnects. My name is Anastasia Barnes. I am the publisher of High Profile. I'm very excited for today's webinar. High Profile's team had the privilege of working with both Ellen and Jenny of the Boulder Company. We went through a three-part series, a workshop series that encompassed leadership skills, the DISC management, which some of you may know, it covers emotional intelligence and also presentation skills. So without further ado, Jenny, Ellen, please, can you guys share your screen? There you are.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hello, hello.
Thank you for taking the time, ladies. I know you're very busy. The ladies will be presenting. It's a SMPS Connecticut event tonight, right?
Yeah, their annual summit. It's they're planning for the next full year, so we're producing and presenting at the event.
Awesome. I asked Ellen and Jenny to come on because me and my team, I'm going to say, especially for me, I gained a great deal from the DISC management series of the workshop. I learned a lot about myself, what I'm doing, what I'm great at, and the challenges that I need to work on. And honestly, I really do believe it's elevated me as a leader. So I know I've said thank you in the past, but big thanks. And I'm super excited for you guys to share, to drop some knowledge to our, I would say listeners, but our attendees. So.
All right.
Attendees, listeners, viewers, people driving in the car, listening to it, and then they'll hear us say, "You see here on this picture," and they'll be like, "I'm driving, I can't see the picture. What are you talking about?" This is the mobile life that we live, even under pandemic. We're still doing that sometimes, right?
For sure. For sure.
So we had a grand time having your group in our class series in June. I guess it was May and June. We did a big long series, and
May and June.
I got to tell you, we learned so much more. I mean, we love working in AEC. We're in this space a lot. It's one of our favorite places to play because it's where folks are so responsive to the learning, and they really are out to affect change in a positive way so that the industry can function better. And I think that your staff at High Profile really brings a great perspective to that conversation. So we learned as much from you guys as you did from us, which was super.
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
For sure.
So let's dive in. What should we cover first? I'm excited to share.
Well, if it's okay, I'm just going to pop some slides up there for us, and we will just get rocking and rolling. How's that?
That sounds great.
All right. Let me just put that up there.
I'm going to stop my video.
Construction under pressure. I love the title of this because it just makes me think of all of our clients that are out there doing the work under pressure. And it's so true in summer, right? Double whammy pressure in summertime, and then double, triple whammy right now because so many jobs got sort of like stalled. Some of our clients that we've talked to lately, they're like, I'm just breathing about 10 times a day to get through the day.
Right.
That's a good title, Ellen. I'm glad you picked that title.
Well, you know, and even before COVID, before everything that's going on in the world, construction is the number one industry for pressure and deadline driven work.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. You've got lots of different players on any job site at any given time. The potential for miscommunication is high. And generally when there's miscommunication, that means time and money. So tempers run short and budgets run over. And so the way to mitigate that is to learn some new skills, to bring into that high pressure environment, to figure out where we can let pressure off. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is ways to notice when pressures are rising in yourself and the people around you, and to give you an alternate strategy to acting the way you've always acted and getting the same result. Right? In fact, one of our favorite sayings is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting to get a different result. So we're going to talk about some replacement behaviors that people can start to think about. How can I try this on with my team, and what might those results be? So you good?
Awesome.
All right.
So,
all right. So.
So what is intelligence? What is emotional intelligence? I think that's a really great graphic. You changed it up. This is why our company is fun, because we're always surprising each other. So here's the thing. You may have heard the term emotional intelligence. You've probably heard terms like IQ or personality type, and what the heck do all these terms mean? Well, emotional intelligence is that it's a skill set of managing our own emotions, using emotional information to relate to other people, being able to take emotional information in and use it to make decisions or to respond to situations. So it's a combination of managing me and recognizing maybe what you need or what the situation calls for. So key points about it, and this is so interesting to me, when we work with engineers, they love the fact that EQ is measurable. So that's why we put this on the slide specifically for our AEC audience today, is that it's super measurable. It's really, really learnable. So personality type is more fixed and more sort of basic, but it's really learnable. And IQ is fixed, but EQ is not. So it's all based on science and psychology. So it's all been studied over the models that we use have been studied for about 30, 40 years. And the truth is that they're absolutely essential for leadership and for working with other people, for working in all the pickup teams. You know, that's how we think of it with our AEC clients, is every job site is a pickup team from across industry.
So when we talk about emotional intelligence, we are not going to go into all of this detail today, but we use the model of the EQI 2.0 that started in Canada and is the most validated measurement of EQ in North America. And so we talk about EQ skills in 5 buckets. When Anastasia's team went through it, and this is the way that we approach it, we take a couple buckets in each class and really dive into what do these different competencies mean, and how do they affect me in my world first, and then how I'm reading others and how I'm interacting with them. So it gives us a lot to think about, a lot to work with. And you notice around the outside, though, it also has a direct impact on performance, how well you function both emotionally and socially. And the most important thing is your emotional and physical well-being. One of the things that we know, particularly in the construction industry, is there's an extremely high rate of hypertension, right? High blood pressure. There's people who develop issues with weight and obesity. So there's all sorts of challenges that happen for folks when they're constantly under stress and their hormones are just out of whack because they don't have a way to manage it. So part of what this helps us with is stress management, how we feel about ourselves, our willingness to ask others for feedback and advice, how much we work with the people around us to use empathy, not as a squishy skill, but to take ourselves out of our own head and what we need for a moment. So it's empathy for ourselves, like what do I need right now, but what else might this person be needing right in front of me to help them succeed. Another one of our favorite sayings is that the measure of leadership is your ability to get other people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it.
Right. Yep.
And you do that by building trust with them, helping them through rough patches, and motivating them to do better for themselves and you as a result. Jenny, it looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, no, it's just as you were talking, I was just pointing out for our learners today. I was marking the things that you were specifically talking to on our little chart here, because the information can be a little overwhelming the first time you see it. But what you were talking about with regard to like the physical health of people, right? These high degrees of weight issues, hypertension, heart issues that are so prevalent in the industry. The part of why we like this wheel and this model is that it gives people specific approaches in that stress management. It actually helps you to stop and see, oh, okay, so great. I'm really hung up on having things be my way, right? Which is a measurable skill called flexibility. So if I can learn how to be more flexible, that like will physically reduce my stress in my body, which means I'm going to go home at the end of the day with more for my family. I'm going to get along better with the rest of my pickup team. A very dear friend of ours was a construction engineer for years, and he became a master of this work. So we've worked with him quite a lot to really try to bring this wisdom into the industry because it's so needed. And some of his research indicates that in construction, there is a high degree of independence, meaning I make a lot of decisions on my own without necessarily worrying about the consequences on other people. I'm guilty of this. I'm super hyper independent. A lot of Gen Xers in the world are very independent people. And also assertiveness. So if you're super independent and you're super assertive, then you may be leaving other people in the dust, which leads you to communication issues. And you don't even know it's happening. So part of what we love about this particular model is that it gives us a space to actually be able to measure, all right, I can become less hyper independent, and that will get me better results, which is just, it makes, it gives us a pathway to work on ourselves, which I think matters for, you know, it matters to have a pathway to go down because of the fact that in the industry, we're compressed for time all the time. Mm-hmm. So if we can sort of find the shortest road, that's a huge help. So
the other thing that I added to that was low impulse control. Within the construction industry specifically, one of the measures that comes up frequently is, as Jenny said, a high level of independence, a high level of assertiveness, and a low level of impulse control. So when somebody's highly assertive and highly independent and they don't check themselves,
right,
you wind up with the bull in the china shop, the person who's all hammer.
Right.
And everyone else is a nail.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to go ahead and say I've been like that. And just my takeaway for this one especially was how if you are not looking at your behavior and how you perceive yourself, you know, you're not going to understand how other people are seeing you. If you can't mm-hmm. recognize that within yourself, and that was a huge takeaway, you know.
Thank you.
Yep.
So
totally true.
Clear. Yeah. Go clear. Sorry, trying to clear my little drawings. I'll get rid of it next time. So why does EQ matter? There's a study that was done a couple years ago out of Penn State, and it measured two things. It measured group cohesion, and it also measured something called team integration. So group cohesion is within your group, how much do people trust each other, depend on each other, how forthright are they with each other, are they direct and clear, do you have any subversive behavior going on, right, with clickiness or intentional bullying or any of that, right? So the degree to which those bad behaviors aren't there or challenging behaviors aren't there, you have a higher level of group cohesion. The extent to which they are, you have a lower level of group cohesion. So within your own organization, the statistics show that 58% of projects that came out over budget, not surprisingly, had below average levels of this ability of a team to get along. And the ones that had the higher level of group cohesion had above average chances of being on budget, right? So then you look at the team integration measure, which is how well does my team integrate with other teams, whether it's, you know, my architectural firm and your engineering firm, and we both have to collaborate to make this project together, you know, and how well are we doing that between us? And it has that same whole conversation of, you know, are we having a bundle of challenging behaviors or are we on the same page predominantly? And once again, you see that projects that have that low level or below level average of team integration, they're delivering the projects late, 70% of the time. And in this industry where every day costs a huge amount of dollars, delaying projects because teams can't get along well is directly correlated to their ability to manage stress, challenge, communication challenges, and to communicate clearly and openly, which a lot of which falls into that bucket of emotional intelligence. Okay, there we go. Jenny, there we go. I'll get rid of those annotation things while you're going through the regular.
All right, so I'll take this on. So Ellen, while Ellen attends to her arrows that are lingering on the screen, I wanted to stop and say hi to the folks who have attended. I just was getting, I see this great list of names in our web space today. So I wanted to say hello, and I wanted to invite you to do something with us today. And if you're listening in the car, after this recording has been released, you can do it in the car as well. So our Boulder emotional intelligence model includes basically 4 pieces, and they are feel the heat, take a beat, pause, and choose. We're going to walk you through a little piece of each of those, but the first one is feel the heat. So my question for you, and if you're game to play with us, feel free to put it in the chat, because we would love to hear what's going on for you today while you're learning about this. The question is, how do I know I'm feeling feelings? Which sounds like a weird question to ask, right? What do you mean, how do I know I'm feeling feelings? Well, how do you know you're feeling feelings? Like, what are your indicators? So an example of this would be, I've come home, say, with groceries, and discovered that my kids and my dog are all just doubled over laughing hysterically, and the room is full of energy and it's joyful. So I've come home and my family is really full of energy and bouncing around. So I might then have an emotional response to that. So how am I going to feel that in my body? How would I feel that joy? How would I know? Like, how would I recognize the emotion? Well, there might be some key pieces to that. Ellen, you and I can cite off a couple of these. So for me, I would probably start laughing right away, right? So laughter, my heart might bounce a little bit, right? Like I might feel my heart rate go up a tiny bit. What else do you think? Anastasia, Ellen, what do you guys think would be the indicators that you're feeling happiness?
Smiling.
What is your body or your thoughts? Smiling?
Absolutely. Smiling. A sense of elevation. I don't know if that's in my body, but sense of the moment I smile, it's like fake it till you make it. I'm smiling, but I really am happy.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So you feel all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So you can feel it in your body is part of our point here. When you feel an emotion, when you feel feelings.
Yeah.
So on our wheel, that translates to emotional self-awareness, which is, oh, this is the thing I'm feeling right now. And the reason it matters to tune into how we're feeling is because our feelings have a direct effect on how we behave, right? When I feel a certain way, I do a certain thing. So if I'm feeling happy when I walk into my family, when I feel happy, I might smile and laugh. And more importantly, I might greet them warmly.
Oh, yeah.
Say, hey, look at you guys are having a great day. So let's flip the switch a little. Say I walk into my family and my kids are having a fight and a squabble, and the energy is really, I'm using the family example because everybody has a family of some kind that they can probably relate to. You can map this to the office or the team just as well, right? Walk into the office and you can feel it when something bad has happened in the room. When somebody's been arguing. So it's like, okay, I walk in and everybody's mad and everybody's grouchy and grumpy. And I walk in and somebody is immediately in my face, like, well, you're late. What is going on? Do you have the report, or do you have the milk, or whatever it is, right? Some kind of situation. So what are the feelings you're going to feel then? And how will you know you're feeling them? What might happen?
Your defense goes up. Your heart might start palpitating. Maybe there's something that has happened that you're not aware of. Feelings of doubt. And anger.
Sweaty palms.
Yes.
Right. Anger.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Heart rate, palms.
Yeah.
Neck, shoulders start.
Get these lines.
Right. Face.
Yeah.
So we have 1,000,001 indicators that we feel feelings, but what ends up happening is that we get to be so busy that we forget to just go, oh, I'm feeling feelings. They might be affecting my behavior. Right? But the fact is that emotions run our system if we don't learn how to run the system.
So that is the first of the 4 Boulder cycles, parts of the Boulder cycle. That's the feel the heat. And so we have a question for the folks out there who are watching the webinar who might want to put something in chat. How do you know when you're feeling feelings? Like, what are some of the indicators that you have that your emotions are rising, either in a positive way or a negative way, maybe different than what we said? And then we would like you to name the emotions, because one of the things that we notice happens quite often is people have like happy, sad, glad, and their ability to parse out what emotion is actually in play may be limited. They may have a limited emotional intelligence vocabulary. So if it falls into angry, sad, glad, it's familiar, but some things, when you have a conversation and you pull it apart, it starts as angry and really what it was embarrassed. Or it starts as glad and really what it is overjoyed. Or, you know, there's much more emotional vocabulary that we can employ to accurately describe the feelings that are coming up, and also pull apart sometimes what is your inner dialogue or talk track that's going with that emotion. So if I walk into my house and the kids are fighting and the dog is chewing on a pair of shoes and there's dirty dishes.
God, not again.
Right?
Oh.
My inner talk track could be, they don't appreciate me. I'm off working all day and I have to come home to this crap. Are you kidding me? Like, that could be it. And if I walk in and that's my inner talk track, how likely am I to like pull back and go, they must have really missed me today. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And the same thing happens in our offices, especially if we've an inner talk track about somebody and their relative competence. If they make a mistake and our inner talk track is they always screw up, then we're not going to parse apart necessarily this particular incident from the talk track that we have about that person and about the situation, which means we're less likely to resolve it. I saw some things come in chat. What did you see in there? Anything? I can't see.
Let's keep moving.
Okay, cool.
Let's keep moving.
Good. All right. So we have feel the heat, and then we have take a beat. Take a beat is as simple as it sounds, which is just separate yourself from the stimulus. Remember to breathe. Right? How often do you run breathlessly from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, not even remembering to notice your breath and the body that you're living in? I'm sure you can all relate to having being a zombie by the end of the day, feeling sort of slack-jawed and hunched shoulders, right? So how often do we take a beat to just breathe in, breathe out? And what we usually do is we recommend that people do a very simple breath exercise that we can do just for a moment here to give you a demonstration of it. So I'm going to invite Anastasia and Jenny to settle back in their chairs to give you an example of what this looks like. It's as simple as pulling back from your screen and releasing your focus from your screen.
I'm going to stand.
You can either take a soft focus on something else in the room, or you can look at your screen and you're just going to breathe in for a count of 4, hold it for 4, release it for 4, and hold it again. So it just goes like this. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Take a nice deep breath, open your eyes when you're ready to come back into the room. We only did 2 rotations of that. It was about 32 seconds. But Anastasia and Jenny, as you sat there and you just sort of pulled back from your world and breathed for a few minutes, how did you feel?
You know what's interesting? I feel, first of all, I don't practice any kind of meditation or taking a moment. So I am that girl. I'm curious why, because we did this in your workshop series in the summer. Why, not that this isn't the summer, why do you hold at the top and the bottom? Is that simply to slow the breath down? Because otherwise you're just like, and move on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Yep.
Interesting.
It's actually what you're really doing in that exercise, the whole process, is you're manipulating your own neurology. So I also was never one of those, yeah, let's stop and breathe deep and meditate people. Like I would have told you to stuff it a couple of years ago if you'd come to me with that idea. But here's what I learned since then is that when you breathe in like that, and particularly if you do it into your diaphragm, if you do it into your belly as opposed to the top of your chest, you're calming the neurological response to stress. So you're manipulating your own brain into calming down.
Interesting.
Yep, and there's loads of science that backs that up. And so the breathing, this particular reason we choose that square breathing one is that it's often taught in the military. So it's taught to high pressure people in varying places. I don't know if it's true or not, but my brother-in-law told me that that's what they use with the SEALs. He said, well, when I was in the Navy, they used to use that. The SEALs used to use that. I don't know if that's true or not, but he was in the Navy, so I trust his opinion. So, but I know that there are lots of places where it's used in really high pressure situations. And I'm like, well, okay, if people under that kind of pressure are using it,
yeah,
maybe there's something to it. Like, okay, I'll try it. And then when I tried it, I was like, wow, this really makes an amazing difference. And so instituting it as a regular practice a couple of times a day makes a really big difference. And again, if we're looking at like the health and well-being of an individual and how they're showing up for their team, how they're showing up for their clients, and how they're showing up for their families, if we can calm more of those neurological responses, then we get to have a better, healthier body, right? Because we're lowering all those hypertension chemicals, and we get to bring more of who we are home at the end of the day.
The other piece that I would say about that is, if you remember at the top of the session, we talked about emotional intelligence being based in neuroscience.
Right.
Right. So our neurobiology says that short panting breath means we're in danger. It triggers something in our brain that says that danger is near and we're ready in that fight-flight environment. So short breath and breathing just from the top part of your chest has you ready for action.
Right.
But doing that over time has really negative impacts on your entire physiology, right? So intentionally calming your central nervous system by breathing deeply like that sends signals that say all is well, and actually gives you a breath and physical break from the next thing you're about to do. And you know, people say, I need to clear my brain. That's a clearing your brain.
Right. Yeah.
You're literally calming yourself.
Yep.
So we talked about the cycle. We have feel the heat. We have take a beat, which doesn't have to be breathing. It could be simply leave the room. One of our favorites is drink a full glass of water before you make any decisions about what to do next, right? Because it takes that much time and gives us time to think. Sometimes if we're in a heated exchange with somebody, the best thing we can do is ask them a question, which offloads us and takes us off a point of having to respond right in that moment in a way that could take us sideways, right? But the next piece of it is to pause and figure out for yourself, what is it in this moment with this person in this situation that is taking me off track?
Right.
Right. So what is it that is actually throwing me off in this moment? Which is where we get to a conversation about something called cognitive distortions. Jen, you want to take that part?
Sure. So quick question out there for our listening audience, and I'll ask both of you as well. Pretend with me for a moment. You are in maybe your office, maybe you're in a trailer, or maybe you're in a home office, or wherever you happen to be. You've just had some lunch, and now you have a dish. So think for a moment about what should, in your world, happen to that dish. Your options might include, it's fine where it is. Your perspective might be, are you kidding? It's not fine where it is. You need to at least take it to the counter, you know, in the break room or the kitchen. Or nope, maybe option 3 is something like, put that thing in the dishwasher, put it in the sink. I don't want to look at it, you know. Or it could be something completely different. Like it could be wash it right away, immediately. Or maybe it's just put it on the floor because the dog is interested in the crumbs, or the cat if you're in my house. right? So one of those options might have appealed to you out there in listener land. And think for a moment about your own automatic response to that. So, and maybe it's something else that I haven't even named off, but whatever your response was, that's your general rule for doing a thing. So we all have rules for how we do things, right? So that particular example is Ellen, can you jump ahead one slide for me, please, to the rulemaking, and then we'll pop back. So inside of the thing I just said, you may have had, I would leave it there until after 5. Replace it with ice cream. Yes. Refill it. See, I hadn't even thought of that. So in any of those examples, you immediately had a, well, this is what I should do with that dish, right? This is what should happen. So anytime that we're hearing this is what should happen, that's our own little personal rule popping up about how we should do a thing. So this is an example. Ellen, can you do me a favor and go back one slide, please?
Sure.
This rulemaking is an example of a cognitive distortion. So cognition is how we perceive things, right? It's our brain cogitating and making information make sense. Distortions is how we add meaning and filter to the things that we see. So it pushes that information through our own personal brain filters. I like to think of this as, if you ever had the Play-Doh machine, you had the little filter on the end of it where you push the Play-Doh through and it came out a certain shape, and then if you put a different filter on the end, it came out another shape. This is what distortions are all about. They're the things that form how we think about things. So if Ellen, could you please go back to our should slide? Then if we've had a distortion that says it should be on the counter, then I'm going to be upset and in agita if you do something different with it, because you broke my rule, you naughty, naughty person, right? So that's going to cause all kinds of hell in our workplace or in our home, right? Because somebody broke my rules. And so this is an example that we use because it's, everybody has dishes in their life, so it's pretty universal. But the reality is that everybody's rules are different. Everybody's personal rules for doing things are different. So I might activate these, we give you 3 skills from our wheel. We might activate 3 different skills in the context of having that rule broken. One might be reality testing. I could say, well, the person was really, really busy and rushed out the door and couldn't get to it. I might need to be flexible and say, okay, is this really the worst thing in the world that could happen? Yeah, maybe. I could also activate empathy, and I could say, well, if I'm using my empathy, then maybe I need to understand that they're trying to work on 10,000 things right now, and they're so pressured and overwhelmed that they can't even remember to do that. So this is just one example. There are about 15 cognitive distortions.
And the important thing to notice the important thing to notice about rulemaking is there are things that are right and wrong in your work, right? Architecture, engineering, construction is about precision and about doing things right. But you can get the right thing done with different approaches. And so it's really a challenge to think about all of the places in your world where your should about how something should get done is impeding creativity or making people feel wrong for their approach and maybe not creating room for other people to grow.
Right.
It also keeps you stuck doing it if you're the only one who can do it right.
Right, yeah.
Right, and that's a huge challenge for a lot of people who overcommit and keep taking on more and more and don't delegate well, which is something that we go over in our DISC for Managers program, is what is preventing you from having other people do it. Well, if I have a strong should about how something should get done and nobody does it as well as I do, well, guess what? You get to keep doing it, which is a career limiting behavior. And it's a huge cause of stress.
Absolutely.
But there's another huge cause of stress that happens all the time, every day. We see it, we hear it, we do it. Hey, Jenny, my cell phone just died while we were on this call.
Oh my God. If your cell phone died, you might not be able to receive any of those calls that we're expecting later from those leads.
And if I can't get the calls and I can't retrieve them, then we're going to miss leads that could help us move forward on the 3 key projects in our pipeline right now.
Oh my God, if we can't move forward on those projects, we're going to lose our presence in the marketplace. Our brand is going to be really damaged.
Then we're going to have to move out of our office because we won't be able to afford it.
Oh my God, if we can't afford our office and we have no place to work, we're going to end up having to work in coffee shops, and people will see all of our work and steal it.
If they steal, oh, it's going to cost us a fortune on trademark infringements.
It is.
So you see,
we could go on and on and on. If we keep following that, we're going to end up at death. Yeah.
Eventually we die. So one of the next things we want folks to think about is another cognitive distortion that is a favorite of ours that we see all over the place, particularly in the world of COVID, which is catastrophizing. Is taking something to the worst possible place that it can go in 0 to 60. So the key here is if you have this tendency to catastrophize, it affects you, it affects everyone around you, and it creates energy that doesn't move anything forward. This is very different than strategically plotting out and doing risk prevention, although the people who are the best at risk prevention tend to catastrophize. Just pointing that out. And they know they are. I just read Malcolm Gladwell's Talking with Strangers, and there are some amazing examples in there of people who catastrophize for the good and then figure out how to back it out. But anyway, we'll keep going. So inside of catastrophizing, when you are escalating, when you notice people around you escalating, how self-aware are you that that's where you're going? This is where it ties into emotional intelligence. How are you expressing yourself? Are you using, this is all going to happen or this is never going to happen, you know, extremes in your language to describe what an outcome could be? You know, have you backed off of your immediate emotional response to do any reality testing? Like, how much of this is actually real and within my control to affect? You know, are you containing your impulse control to do that kind of escalation? And then finally, where does optimism play into all of this? If we're always looking, if we're always Chicken Little and the sky is always falling, the people around us, first of all, they stop responding with a level of urgency because that's just always what we do. But the other thing is that we upset ourselves and the people around us and take time away from being productive.
Right.
I would add to this also, not only there's the piece of this that is about if everything's urgent, nothing is urgent, but I think catastrophizing can be super subtle. So one thing we've learned in AEC for a lot of our very technical friends in the field is we've seen this response. They're like, well, I don't do that. I don't do that. That's what other people do. And I would challenge your thinking around that if that's like sort of your response to this idea. And here's why. One, you may not do this in the melodramatic way that Ellen and I just showed you, but you may have some of that either or thinking afoot in how you're operating or how you're responding to challenges. I'll give you a very specific example of this. The other day, I had a dear friend who is sometimes inclined to inaction. He's a little bit of a passive guy. Good egg, but really, really passive. And when I saw him, he was just wearing the most hangdog face. And this is a guy who's super technical, very sort of logic, analytical. If I ever told him that he was catastrophizing, he would tell you hands down, that's not what I do. I don't do that. I don't do that. But he had a major mistake happen with his credit card company. And it ended up wiping out a really big chunk of money because there was like a payment error. So instead of paying what he wanted to pay, it paid double or triple. I think it was even triple what he wanted to pay on it. So a big chunk of money came out of his bank account. For me, if that happened, I would sort of go, wah, do my little catastrophizing. I would let myself run through that expression, and then I would do my reality testing and say, okay, fine, what's going on? But his impulse, this is where we get to impulse control. His impulse was to dial back and deny and to say, well, nothing's going to happen anyway. I said, call the credit card company. No, they're not going to do anything anyway. So saying, no, it doesn't matter, and retreating is as much a form of catastrophizing as going in the opposite direction. So if you're that person, may want to check that. And I hope that's of service to you if that automatic response may be yours, where you're like, yeah, I'm all that in a bag of chips and super calm. Maybe.
Yeah, reactionary, right? That's impulse. When you don't have impulse control, that's reactionary. And I am right here, folks, right here.
Well, and the other
Right.
piece of it is, it's just as much of an impulse control issue when somebody sees what they perceive to be trouble coming and goes turtle.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Pulls their head in, puts their head down, and just goes, I'm just gonna pretend I'm not here until this all passes, right? Which guarantees that nothing's going to change, right? And also puts them in a position of being less trusted by their coworkers, because this is a person who won't take hard things on. So both are a challenge, the super high response and also the no response are both challenging for the people you work with if we're trying to work our way together through problems as a team. So what we've shown you as we go into, we want to leave some time for questions, is that this is the normal pattern. Something happens, we filter it through what we know and believe, we react, and it has impacts. And the extent to which we get into patterns of behavior, we're like a do loop. This happens, I react, it has these impacts, on we go. I'm sure you all know people who behave like this. Yeah, we all do. Absolutely. Including ourselves, if we're honest. So the Boulder cycle is feel the heat, notice that you're having an emotional response, take a beat and separate from the stimulus if you can, pause to figure out what might be going on, right? Whether it's emotional, bringing in the skills of emotional intelligence and parsing it apart, whether it's these cognitive distortions, which you can simply Google, and there's a list of the 16 most common cognitive distortions, whether it's unconscious bias. This is a big part of our work, is talking to people about, what's the source of this response right now? Could it come from some bias that you have towards or against a particular group, a particular behavior, you name it, right? And then the most important part is, how do you make a productive, meaningful choice that makes a difference for you and the other person involved? But for yourself first, because emotional intelligence is an inside game. As soon as we turn it out away from us and start blaming the people around us, when blame, shame, and guilt come into play, that is a lower level of a way to interact with people. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from folks in the construction industry saying, you don't understand how rough it is out on job sites. Like, people are just straight up awful with each other.
Yeah.
This was actually, people said that when we were in Ireland. He said, you don't know what it's like out there. And I said, okay, so that's what it's like out there. The question is, how are you when you come back to the office with the people that you need the most to make things go forward? How strong is your team cohesion, so that if you get beaten up outside, you don't come back and be fearful that you're going to get beaten up inside? How do you start to build more resilience with and for each other, so that you become that soft landing place for each other, so that you can go out the next day and do that difficult thing again together? Right?
I would add also that, there is, if we're looking at this word choose, one of the things that we hope to see happen in the industry over, maybe the next 5 to 10 years, we're really on a mission to make a dent in the industry in terms of how people treat each other. And the industry needs that, because the old ways, one of our clients that was recently in the same series that your team was in, Anastasia, he said, you know what? The old ways that we've been doing for all these years, and this is a guy probably in his late 40s, he said these old ways are just not going to carry us forward anymore. It's too much, right? The old, between the cost, the billions of dollars in cost because of lost communication and worker injury and rebuilds and right, we could go on about that. He said, it doesn't need to be this way, right? So part of our wish for your audience is to think about, I'm out to take this on from a different place for myself, right? To Ellen's point about, I am going to choose, I am going to commit to having a different response because it's better for me, it's better for my team, it's better for the industry. Like this, there's this idea that we work with. We really have a core belief that if you can get organizations doing 4 magical things, they are listening, speaking up, cultivating ownership, and building relationships. If you can get any individual and team member and organization to do those 4 things and take them on as practices, we can completely change the pun intended landscape of this industry. We really can. And the piece here is ownership, right? Like, so our friend in Ireland who said that comment, when we invited him to take on, like, okay, great. So you go back to your office and take great care of you and take great care of your team, and you'll feel better. And we heard from him a while later, and he was like, okay, I'm doing it. It's making a difference for me. So it's really possible.
Yeah.
Because he feels like he can affect some level of change, and the less conflict he has with his teammates, the quicker they get out for a beer at the end of the day. You know, they get down to the pub, they get back to, you know, relating to each other. Like, we can all make a difference within our workplaces if we choose to. You don't have to be the leader within an organization to take on a different way of being with the people around you. And the beauty of the EQI 2.0, this conversation about having 15 different competencies that we can learn about, and then find out where we rate, if you will. And I'm sharing this with you just to show you how in-depth the assessment is. This is mine from about 2 years ago.
Yours, yeah.
Right? And I'm not showing it to you to tell you all about myself. I'm showing it to tell you that you can look at this and see that I have very high interpersonal skills and maybe less high impulse control and problem solving. As soon as I saw that and read my report and it said, when you have a high this and a low this, it creates this gap, and this gap can lead to X, I was like, oh yeah, I see that all over the place.
Yeah.
Right? So when somebody shines a light on something specific that you can do, because that's the other piece of this conversation, is not just the awareness of, oh, this is me, this is where the gap is. When you can get specific, granular suggestions for how you can change your behaviors in any one of these competencies, you can start to shift your own well-being. Your own well-being. That's like at our stand for everyone, our secret weapon, where we're really out for, is that people leave at the end of the day with more ease and confidence so that they can go out into their world and love their life.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. You have less stress and overwhelm during your day. You leave the workplace and you're not wrung out and strung out. You come into the world and back into your home and life and relationships with more peace and ease, which leads to a better sense of well-being. So, I mean, that's about as basic as it gets and as complex as it is to make changes. So, we have another round of the emotional intelligence program coming up. We called it the people problem. A challenge to leaders to up-level your ability to lead through change, right? It's not a problem with people. It's, you know, it's starting between your ears conversation. We're going to do two blasts of sessions. We know people are away on vacation sometimes during the summer, but lots of people aren't. So we'll take advantage of that. July 30th and August 6th from 9 to 1, 2 short sessions. And then we also do private EQ coaching. For folks who are interested, they can reach out to us at thebouldercompany.com. All right.
I think I'm going to continue the EQ.
And at the top of the session, Anastasia, we did put, I can't see chat. I can probably just drop this now, finally. There we go. We do have one last question or favor for the folks who have been on the call with us, and that is to consider clicking on this link. Tell us what you thought of the session, whether you found value in it, what you got out of it, and of course we'll share all those responses with you as well, because we love to get feedback.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully if you're in a position of leadership in your organization, you crave feedback, because we can't improve on what we don't know is happening for other people. You know? Go ahead. You go.
I have a question for you and Jenny.
Yes, please.
It's we're going to play a little game called Odd Man Out. I do this with every guest.
Odd Man Out.
And it changes every week based on the topic. So this topic will be emotional intelligence.
Yep.
I'm going to make 5 statements, and one of those statements is the odd man out. So one of those statements may not be true. Are you ladies ready?
Yes. We'll figure it out.
All right. The first one. Emotional and social skills are 4 times more important than IQ when considering success and prestige in professional settings.
Mm-hmm.
Second one, EQ is measurable and learnable. Number 3, you can learn and unlearn your intelligence quota. Number 4, we are always in an emotion, even when we try to be emotionless.
Mm-hmm.
And number 5, emotions guide every decision we make.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Well, that's clear for me.
This one's clear for you? Number 3,
and for me.
ladies and gentlemen, that's
Number 3.
Number 3.
So you ladies will
Number
be getting
3.
the latest digital album of Fiona Apple's Fetch the Bolt Cutters. So I will be, and if you're not a fan of Fiona Apple, pretend you are.
Yes. Absolutely.
I'm a fan of music in general, so there's nothing I won't try on at least once.
I love it.
That's awesome. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Yes, I try to bring in a little levity. Michael created those. He's created 5. I would have come up with 3, but that's all right.
That's all right.
Looks like we don't have any additional questions or comments, and we're approaching 1 o'clock. I just want to say thank you again, ladies, for taking the time and sharing your wisdom that you have shared with me and the high profile team. And if anyone has any questions, we will be, this will be obviously is being recorded, and I'm going to edit it, and this will be in our YouTube channel starting next week. And I will include both Jenny and Ellen's information right on the screen when you're watching it. So
wonderful.
All right, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Absolutely.
This was loads of fun.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to edit this and share this on our YouTube channel. And have a good luck this evening or this afternoon. Right? This afternoon.
Thank you. Yeah, we're doing the SNPS thing, so we're really looking forward to that. Thank you, Shelley. Glad you enjoyed it.
Oh, hi, Shelley. All right. Thank you, ladies. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
You too.
Bye, everybody. Thanks
Bye.
for listening.